When I thought about women in arms, I thought about my mom saying to me, "Wow, my arms were so thin back then," when she was looking at a picture of her holding me when I had cancer as a baby. And I honestly noticed that comment she made because a few weeks before my mom said that about herself, I saw a picture of myself when I was 4 years old, just after I finished up my cancer treatments, and made a comment to my friend about how good my arms looked because they were thin. Both my mom and I were just looking at how thin we were and not even thinking about how unhealthy we both must have been at the time. Thinking about these comments now, I can only see them as absurd, but in reality they are deeply rooted in the negative ways women view themselves. And when I saw the picture of my mom holding me, I didn't see her arms the way she saw them. This is a photo of my cousin holding her daughter. It shows the loving connection between them, not anything to do with their weight. I think it is clear that judging your arms or working out so that your arms are thinner and more ideal or typical is something a lot of women struggle with. Trans women can feel the pressure that their arms aren't feminine enough, and even cis women can feel the pressure that their arms aren't feminine enough if they don't conform to the typical stereotypes of a thin upper arm. And then women who do conform often feel their arms are too adolescent boy looking because they are skinny. There is no winning, yet we are all trying to change our bodies, our workouts, and our diets to conform. One place I find support from arms is through my friends. It can be really hard to find that platonic closeness with someone after you move out of your parents' house. I think there is more of a metaphorical message here too. We all need to be there for each other and in a more inclusive way. We need to hold ourselves accountable and listen when we are challenged. We need to support trans women and women of color, refugees and undocumented women, queer women, disabled women. When we do not consider these women in the category of who we would or do hold close, then we are not actually supporting anyone. The Women's March is something that I reflect on with a lot of critique in myself even for not realizing at the time how exclusive it could be. I mean, the disability aspect is obvious and way too common at feminist events. If it's not accessible, it is not feminist. But after the march, when there were pictures of white women in pussy hats hugging cops, it was really sobering. Even some of the signs people had were rough. Something like a uterus can totally be an empowering symbol, but it does tend to exclude trans women or intersex women or whatever woman who doesn't have a uterus for whatever reason. Another way I see women's arms interacting in the world is through the people in my life who are in the LGBTQ+ community. I think about the potential for violence that exists when queer people show any signs of PDA in public, and if not the potential violence, the inevitable judgment. Seeing two women romantically or sexually interacting with their arms is valid and not offensive. I think my friends look comfortable, loving, and cozy in this picture, and really you can barely tell these women are part of the LGBTQ+ community based on this photo. They just look happy and comfortable. One of the things I noticed visually when I was thinking about how I wanted to photograph how sexual violence can result in women feeling a lack of control in their arms was how subtle the difference between sexual violence and positive sexual situations are. In the first picture I took, a man is grabbing a woman by the wrists. He is restricting her movement and she has lost control. I tried to depict this feeling of losing control by making the lighting very dark, cool colors, and contrasted. On the other hand, I made this picture of a man and a woman holding hands together, warm, not super contrasted, no harsh lighting. This is different than the photo of queer women only because college-age men often have to figure out what is an appropriate way to interact with women and their bodies. They have to learn about consent and furthermore, enthusiastic consent. This photo isn't just about PDA or a loving relationship being celebrated. It is about a man knowing how to interact with a woman in a positive way within the context of a straight relationship. I also think the way women present ourselves at work is so difficult to figure out. Now, not everyone can wear what they want to work. Many women have jobs that require uniforms. But when we can choose what we want to wear, it's usually a daily thought for women about what is appropriate or what looks professional, instead of what makes us feel strong and confident, and however else we want to identify with our strengths. I purposefully didn't include anything but the business jacket in the cropping of this photo. I didn't want the identity of the woman to be obvious, because it doesn't. Women also never have to stop literally arming ourselves. It's particularly true for college-age women. We hear that if we walk around on campus at night, people will try to attack us, because that does happen. But this is not something women are able to grow out of, and it is something all women have to think about. Women of color, trans women, queer women, disabled women, all particularly feel this constant threat because they are women, but also because of the identities that some people consider to be invalid. One of the most obvious ways my arms have been regulated throughout my life is through dress codes and societal norms that regard sleeveless shirts as offensive. This was an issue when I was in 4th grade, and it's an issue in college. So many women have been doubted throughout history when they experienced violence because of the clothing they were wearing. Alternatively, women should also feel empowered by their modesty if they want to. Modesty doesn't have to be bad. It can also be a positive thing. It is totally valid to feel empowered by it. I started doing yoga at the beginning of this school year as a way to exercise that I actually enjoy. Turns out yoga works for me, and I've started to build a lot of muscle that I didn't have before. I've gotten a lot of comments about how I look so thin or skinny, and that's true, I guess. I did lose fat and gain muscle, but I really just feel a lot stronger. I noticed muscles that I didn't have before, and it makes me happy because I know I am more capable now. I have a lot more physical stamina for yoga, and I'm really starting to understand the meditation side of it. It's my 30 minutes a day when I get to let go of everything and just think about my breathing and my movements. It took a full year, but I look at my arms in a different way than I did when I saw the photo of me as a recently in remission 4-year-old. I like them now because they're so strong. I don't really regard them as thin, and they aren't thin, but I love them. I can hold my whole body up on them, and they support me. The norms in society are constantly guiding women to hate their bodies because it's inadequate in some way. I am happy that I'm starting to see past that and understand that although my arms aren't this one thing they're supposed to be, that they're strong in a way that I can't help but love myself for.